What we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. This is Exposé coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria, every Monday on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook simultaneously. I'm the regular host, Tony Akinyemi. Don't forget, what we need is not more medication, but more education, because the best prescription is knowledge. Hello and welcome to Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. We have discussed the subject of infertility in men as well as in women. We have looked at various other things relating to female health towards the tail end of our conversation. And then we have brought experts, consultants, medical doctors, to ask them questions which they have addressed variously. And we appreciate all those who have availed us of their time, their expertise, their experiences in helping us to get educated. Like we always say, what we need is not more medication, but more education. Now, having looked at all of that, there is something else that is out there begging for our attention. And I believe it's going to form a very beautiful part of this series that we've been talking about, particularly as we talk about fertility, childbearing, pregnancy, and issues relating to it. And that subject that I have in mind actually is the subject of rape. R-A-P-E, rape. People get raped from time to time, but we don't want to talk about it. And when people get raped, they may get pregnant in the process, and a number of other things also follow. So today, I want us to commence a conversation on rape as a continuation of this subject relating to families. Now, I am not an expert when it comes to psychology or psychotherapy or what have you. As you all very well know, I wear 4 caps, and that's why today I decided to put on my cap. So I can let you know that I actually wear 4 different caps. First and foremost, you all know that I'm a computer engineer. That's my first cap. And then you also know that I am a theologian and pastor. That's my second cap. Thirdly, I'm a nutritional consultant. That's my third cap. And then there's a fourth one. I'm also a parent. God has blessed my wife and I with 2 daughters and a son. And so these are my 4 caps, and particularly my pastoral cap and my being a parent. Those 2 caps actually mandate me, to be interested and probably concerned about this matter, rape. And so I want us to have an open conversation. I welcome your comments in the chat room, or you can send us emails after now, if you're watching this after the streaming, okay? You can send your email to our email address, contact@tsfchurch.com. Now, let me give you some statistics about rape. Maybe that will trigger your interest. In the year 2015, UNICEF reported that 1 in 4 girls in Nigeria had experienced sexual violence before the age of 18. That was in the year 2015, very, very recently, in our recent history. 25% of girls, 1 in 4 in Nigeria, had experienced sexual violence before they turned 18. The same UNICEF reported also that in the year 2015, 1 in 10 boys in Nigeria had experienced sexual violence before the age of 18. So already that answers one question that I wanted us to address in this episode, that rape it's not only the problem of girls. Even boys are raped, sometimes by those ladies hired to care for those minors. And they kind of have a way of manipulating those young boys, innocent boys, into, sexual intimacy. Now, according to a survey by a group known as Positive Action for Treatment Access, they say over 31.4% of girls said that their first sexual encounter had been rape or forced sex of some kind. I mean, these are very, very scary statistics. Nigeria, we are told, has recorded a spike in sexual and gender-based violence in the past few years, especially with the onset of the COVID pandemic lockdown in the year 2000. To date, there has been a spike in sexual violence, gender-based violence, maybe due to the lockdown where people are now in close proximity in a small space for a long time, and then so they take their aggression to everybody around them. Now, it was reported that from January to June of the year 2020, at least 707 cases of rape were reported in Nigeria, according to the Nigeria Police Force. You can go to the website reliefweb.int/report/Nigeria, and you find the statistics at that website. Okay, now, when it comes to rape, my personal take is that prevention is always the best. Prevention is always the best. Whatever you and I, the whole of us, society, can institute or put in place in order to prevent the ugly incidences of rape, we need to put them in place. I know that despite our best efforts at prevention, these preventable events still do occur. But then, that's not an excuse not to institute our prevention strategy. We need to put in place the things that will help to prevent such ugly incidents, because prevention is always better and cheaper than cure, as we all know. Now, but in this conversation, I really want to zero in more on the role that parents play, both in the prevention of rape and when rape occurs. How should parents deal with this in, working alongside the rape victim to help to offer appropriate help and therapy for the rape victim? And so when I say parent here, I do not mean only biological fathers and mothers of individuals. But that is the primary reference. Parents refer to primarily biological fathers and mothers of children. But beyond biological fathers and mothers, a parent could also be somebody who is a father figure or a mother figure in the life of an individual, which is not necessarily that individual's biological father or mother. But that person, the father figure or the mother figure, is in the place of showing and giving directions and care to these wards or children, young people that one way or another have found themselves under the care of these individuals. So like I said again, we'll be focusing more on the role that parents play or should play in mitigating the incidence of rape on the one hand and in offering support to rape victims when it does occur. So the big question is, what is the place of parents, or what are the roles of parents when rape occurs? Okay, of course, I know that various aspects of society have roles to play. The government has a role to play. Religious leaders and religious houses have a very, very big role to play as well. And of course, our various institutions in society, NGOs and various other institutions like our medical institutions and even our tertiary institutions, secondary institutions, primary institutions, in schools, educational institutions. Everybody has got a role to play. But then in this series, I want to tilt more in the direction of the roles that parents should play, first of all in preventing rape from occurring or happening to their children, or if it does happen, how to move forward from there. Okay, and our focus will be twofold. Number one is when rape occurs, what follows? And then the place of parents, essentially in preventing as well as in post-rape seasons. When rape has already occurred, how should that be handled? How should that be mitigated? Okay, so I welcome, again, like I said, your contributions. It will help a lot so that we can enrich this conversation. Now, I'm making some assumptions in discussing rape today. One, I assume that we're addressing the issue of female victims of rape, even though I have established from the beginning that both males and females can be raped, but it happens more to females than to males, okay? And usually when it happens to females, apart from the possibility of trauma and disease, there's also the possibility of pregnancy, and we're talking fertility. So that's why I believe that this subject actually fits into our discussion. So I'm making the first assumption that we are going to be focusing more on the issues affecting female victims of rape. In other words, girls or women that have been raped. Number two, I also assume that the rapist is not the father of the girl. Because if the father of the girl is also the rapist of the girl, then that's a different ballgame. I'm making the third assumption that the rape victim spoke out immediately after the incident, because you see, there are many rape cases that were never reported. Now, so let's assume that somebody has been raped, not by the father, and so we now are looking at what the father and the mother of that girl rape victim should consider going forward. Okay, so first of all, let's start this conversation with who is impacted when rape occurs. Who is impacted? Of course, there is the primary victim. That is the rape victim herself. Sometimes these rape victims are even murdered by the rapists. Now, even if the rape victim is not murdered and is alive, she is alive to deal with the trauma that follows that rape experience. So that is the primary rape victim. And then we also have secondary rape victims. Sometimes we don't think about them, we don't talk about them. Now, when the victim, the rape victim, opens up and talks about her experience, there are other people connected to the rape victim that are also somehow psychologically, emotionally, and maybe even financially impacted with that experience, even though they were not the ones that were raped. For example, if the rape victim is a married woman, then her husband. If she has children, then her children are also impacted. I mean, how would a man deal with the issue of his wife being raped? Or how would children deal with their mother being raped? Okay, so those are the secondary victims of rape, the spouse, the children. And then, of course, the parents of the rape victim are still alive. Then the parents of the rape victim, particularly for single ladies, and most especially if that girl is a minor, the parents are also secondary victims of rape. Then, of course, if the rape victim also has siblings, relatives, friends, neighbors, they are all victims together. The community, the neighborhood, and even the faith community, maybe the church or religious house that particular victim belongs to, is also impacted because everybody gets to hear about it. Everybody gets traumatized psychologically. Everybody begins to feel unsafe in the community. And what's going on here? That's what we mean by secondary victims. Larger society, the whole society, the nation, the country, the city, the state, the local government, everybody is a victim at the end of the day. And that's why I personally believe that everybody must have their hands on deck in addressing this conversation or this scourge of rape that is happening here and there. Now, so when rape occurs, who can actually offer support? If the rape victim is married, of course, the first primary support should come from the husband. And then if she still has parents, the parents must step out and step up and give all their support and encouragement. Of course, other family members, siblings, friends, neighbors, healthcare providers such as doctors, nurses, counselors such as psychologists and what have you, religious leaders and religious houses, pastors, churches and what have you, and then of course government institutions like the police and what have you, and then we have legal practitioners, we have, different levels of government, local government, state government, federal government, indeed everybody, the press, NGOs, individuals, even you. Everybody has something to offer, both in mitigating, the incidents as well as in helping when it occurs. Now, because when rape happens, we must appreciate the fact that the victim immediately following a rape incident could be, number one, emotional and come up with very violent anger against everybody and everything. It could be very confusing. The person may not immediately know what to do. This is where third parties come in to render their support. And then a rape experience is charged with a lot of anxiety, both for the victim as well as her parents. So that's why all hands must be on deck. You and I and everybody must have our minds fixed on offering all the support that we can to stop this menace in our society and to help those who may, in spite of our attempt to stop it, who may still experience it, to help them to live life after the experience. Don't go away. I'll be back shortly after this break. This has been Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. What we need is not more medication, but more education. For the best prescription is knowledge. I'll be back very shortly.
Have you been through stuffs and you survived? Guess what? It's time to set your world on fire. You never know who needs your light, your warmth, and courage. You are a survivor, and that's amazing. I Am a Survivor is of Tony Akinyemi's newest book. Hurry now, grab a copy from the TSS bookstore.
Welcome back. This is Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. Today we are discussing a very, very sensitive subject, a sober one for that matter, one that I believe everyone's hand must be on deck. Governments, institutions, agencies, individuals, corporate bodies, everybody must have their hands on deck. Before we went on that short break, I concluded that first half by drawing our attention to the fact that when somebody experiences rape, it could be very emotional, it could be very confusing, and it could be laden and charged with a lot of anxiety. Okay, now, but before we begin to talk about how to support and help the victim, the primary victim, now, and then a few things that parents can do to help the rape victim, let me first emphasize the need to also think of caring for the traumatized parents themselves. Otherwise, if they are not cared for, even those parents of a rape victim can take wrong decisions and actions based on emotions and sentiments rather than based on rationality. Okay, so the caregiver himself or herself, the father, the mother, or whoever stands in those shoes, must be in a stable state of mind before he or she can offer support and help to a rape victim. Now, so I would suggest to parents to, first of all, handle their own emotions first. You see, and the mindset of parents of rape victims should not be to seek revenge, but to seek justice, okay? Because violent revenge can actually constitute an offense at the end of the day. Because as a parent, you can get so angry that you go after the rapist if you can find him. And then you begin to deal with, dole out jungle justice. And that can also end you in the hands of law enforcement at the end of the day. So I am saying your mindset should not be that of violent revenge, but your mindset should be that of seeking justice. Okay? Should you seek justice as a a secondary victim of rape or a primary victim of rape? My answer is capital yes. Capital yes. That is perfectly in order. There is absolutely nothing in the Bible that suggests that you cannot seek justice, because God is a God of justice. Now, but don't seek revenge. Now, so we also must learn about prioritizing after we have settled the issue of our mindset in approaching the challenge once it happens. The second one is prioritizing. Who should come first in receiving attention when the rape occurs? Do you, first of all, go after the rapist, or do you attend to the rape victim first? I think that the rape victim should first of all be attended to, and then, of course, we can then go after the rapist after that. Now, there are some actions that need to be taken very promptly when it comes to dealing with this matter. And I would suggest that prompt actions should go in the directions of notifying the various agencies of government and professionals that would eventually come to play in dealing with the matter, and not in any particular order. A lawyer or a relevant NGO, I believe, should be notified once a rape occurs. The police should be involved. Medical doctors and other healthcare professionals should be involved. And then religious leaders, your pastor, should be involved. All of these have roles to play. Now, but then we have to begin with the rape victim by helping to, first of all, profile her post-rape needs, the needs of a rape victim. Now, I'll be using the work of Matthew Atkinson in helping to highlight the things that we need to address our minds to in profiling the post-rape needs of a rape victim. Now, Matthew Atkinson said the questions that are often asked by rape victims in their minds, they may not verbalize it or vocalize it, they may not say them out, but in their minds, these are the questions going on in the mind of somebody who has just experienced rape. According to Matthew Atkinson, he says, will I need medical care? Should I tell my family or not? Should I report this matter to the police or not? Could it happen to me again? Am I going to become pregnant with this experience? What if I get a disease like HIV, for instance? Will others reject me now? Am I ruined for the rest of my life because of this rape experience? Will I be an embarrassment to the people I love? Can my life be normal again? These are all legitimate questions, that make their course through the mind of a female rape victim. So these questions, therefore, give us a little idea of the kind of areas in the life of the victim that we need to attend to as we want to offer support and help. I would categorize the needs into different categories: psycho-emotional needs, medical needs, spiritual needs, and what have you. So let's start with the psycho-emotional needs of a rape victim, a female rape victim. The first one is healing from rape trauma syndrome, RTS, or if you like, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. When people experience trauma or stressed by a very acute or violent trauma, they develop a disorder, emotional disorder, psychological disorder. Therefore, they need emotional support. They need people to show understanding. They need psychotherapy. Now, rape victims may linger in self-criticism and self-blame if they are not helped out of it, by those who know how to, professionals. They keep telling themselves, oh, I caused it. Oh, I could have resisted him, and so on and so forth. Now, rape victims tend to replay the video, so to speak, of the incident in their mind for long. And that must be addressed. That must be interrupted. So let's talk about rape trauma syndrome. Now, it is often characterized by shock, denial, fear, grief, confusion, and difficulty making decisions. Now, sometimes there's physical injury in the process of rape. There may be bleeding, tiredness, headache, and what have you. And then there are changes in the personality and behavior of the victim, whether you like it or not. Fear of the opposite sex in particular also sets in. If rape is her first sexual experience, this can cause her to have unrealistic and frightening beliefs about men, marriage, and intimacy. And it can also lead to loss of libido. When she eventually gets married, it may affect her sex life if not properly addressed now at the time that the rape occurred. And then now let's talk about PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, PTSD includes a cluster of symptoms that begin and persist long after a person has survived, or in some cases, maybe not even they themselves being the victims, but they witnessed a severely traumatic or life-threatening event. It may not be rape, it may be something else, but rape victims and their parents in particular can experience PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, because trauma puts us on high alert, it can lead to neurological and biochemical changes within our bodies. And that is why, we need support and therapy. And here on this platform, we talk about therapies, we talk about help, we talk about wellness, we talk about healing, okay? Now, in some cases, memories of trauma keep recurring, and they become increasingly difficult to process. Anxiety increases, and all of these cause the individual to re-experience the feelings that were associated with the trauma as if it were reoccurring in the present again. Now, when somebody is going through PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, there are certain symptoms that you might notice in that individual, and we all need to be acquainted. So when we begin to think about somebody who has gone through serious trauma and is experiencing PTSD, we'll be able to step in and help. Now, according to the 4th edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder, it's called DSM-4, it cites 17 major signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. 17 major signs of PTSD. Number 1 is flashbacks, feeling like the trauma is happening again, and the emotions, the feelings, and the chemicals churned out in the body are all, repeating again as if that experience is actually happening right now as you speak. That's called flashbacks. Another one is nightmares of either frightening things or probably, dreaming about the event again in your dream and re-experiencing it in your dream. Then there's loss of interest in life and, normal, legitimate daily activities. And then the 4th symptom is feeling emotionally numb and detached from other people. These are all symptoms of PTSD. Now, in the most recent publication of DSM, in volume 5, PTSD symptoms are actually grouped into 5 different clusters in that document. The first cluster has to do with stressors. The second one with intrusion symptoms. The third one with unpleasant mood or thought changes. The 4th one is changes in reactivity. And the 5th one is avoidance. Now, let's take them in turn. Now, what is the group of symptoms called stressors? Now, that means that the person is experiencing or witnessing or learning that a loved one has experienced a trauma. And that experience of a traumatic experience, or witnessing a traumatizing experience, or learning about a loved one who has been traumatized one way or another, that in itself becomes a stressor on the individual. So there are a group of symptoms that come into that category. Then there are other symptoms that come under the category of intrusion. Flashbacks, nightmares. Now, these thoughts keep intruding into your mind, into your thoughts, into your experience, even when you are asleep, to your subconscious mind. And then the third group are unpleasant mood and thought changes. Trying to blame yourself for the experience or blame somebody else for the experience, the traumatic experience, decreased interest in legitimate activities, negative feelings, and what have you. And then there are changes in reactivity, such as insomnia, you are not able to sleep, or you become aggressive, or you have difficulty in concentrating. There are symptoms in that category, changes in reactivity. And then there is the avoidance category. This occurs when the person tries to avoid all reminders of the trauma, including avoiding, external reminders of what happened, or avoiding trauma-related thoughts or emotions. Sometimes through the use of drugs and alcohol, some people just get lost in drinking spree. They just start drinking or doing drug or doing all kinds of silly things because they just want to forget their sorrow, so they say. Okay, that's avoidance. It's a group of symptoms like that when people are traumatized. Now, if PTSD is left untreated, post-traumatic stress disorder, if it is left untreated, it can lead to any or many of the following. It can lead to drug abuse, alcoholism. I mean, when I was growing up, we see adults, they will say they are drinking their sorrows away. The question is, can you really drink your sorrows away? Can you numb your sorrow? When you drink yourself to a stupor, you become drunk. What you have succeeded in doing is to numb your senses to reality. But the reality is still there. The problem is still there. You have not dealt with it. You have only fooled yourself. You have only deceived yourself. Okay? Now, untreated PTSD can also lead to job loss because people are no longer able to concentrate on their jobs. And so their performances begin to decline. And when they are giving performance appraisal at work, they score low and they can lose their job on that account. It can lead to other psychiatric disorders. It can lead to self-destructive acts, suicide attempts and what have you. Now, PTSD sufferers can also develop associated disorders such as depression, anxiety, panic attacks, bipolar disorder, and all kinds of phobia can attend to PTSD if it is not addressed. So the first thing we want to deal with when somebody has been traumatized, particularly in a rape experience, is to deal with their psycho-emotional needs. And you need professionals to address that. Psychiatrists or psychologists or, ministers of religion who are versatile, who are proficient, who are experienced in handling matters like that. Okay? Not everybody has the competency, but for those who do, you need to seek out one. Now, the second category of needs in the life of a traumatized person or a rape victim in particular are her medical needs. Okay, there are pregnancy concerns, for example. And then there are concerns for disease as well. Sexually transmitted diseases, sexually transmitted infections such as HIV, for example. And then there is the possibility of injury, gross injury, e.g. gynecological or other physical injuries. Now, all of these require prompt medical attention. Again, this is not something you want to deal with at home. These are things you need experts, you need professionals, competent people, licensed people who can handle it professionally. All right? This is something you need to call for help about. The third category of needs that a traumatized female rape victim needs are her spiritual needs. I am a pastor, and I do believe that when somebody has gone through such an experience, there could be certain implications that need to be addressed spiritually. Apart from the psycho-emotional health of the person, there's also need for prayer to break any evil covenant or other fetish connotations that might be consequent upon the act. I've heard stories of people who want to, in Africa, we have a number of very silly, beliefs that have not taken us anywhere. People, for example, some people in some quarters in Africa believe that if they had HIV/AIDS and they could, have sexual relation with a virgin, then they will be cured of HIV. That is from the pit of hell. There's nothing like that. That is an attempt by the devil to cause people to spread HIV all over the place. Okay? How can sleeping with a virgin cure you of HIV? That's very silly. It's satanic. And some people also believe that if they could have sexual relations with somebody with a particular potion, or they have a particular voodoo concoction or something that they have, or incisions they have on their body or any part of their body, if they could have if they could rape a girl, then they will have breakthrough in life. Then they will have money. They will become millionaires and rich. Very silly and satanic. And so if somebody has been raped with some voodoo, involvement, definitely some things need to be canceled prayerfully. That's what I mean by spiritual needs. Breaking whatever evil covenant and other fetish connotations, because there is some fluid exchange in the act of rape. That's a kind of blood covenant, and it must be broken. It It must be broken. And then prayer for the inner healing of the victim is also very important. Right. And then the fourth area is the legal needs. Don't forget the psycho-emotional needs, the medical needs, the spiritual needs, and now we're talking about the legal needs. Now, the police must be involved, in my view, to effect arrests, to conduct investigations, and what have you. And lawyers, government, NGOs must also come on board to prosecute the rapist, as well as help the victim and her family to obtain justice. That's not vengeance. Obtaining justice is not vengeance. We must draw the line between the two. There's nothing stopping you from seeking justice. You see, because there is what we call the psychology of justice. Psychologically, for the rape victim, obtaining justice is one of the ways, one of the therapies to regain control of herself again. She regains her power that was lost to the rapist when the act happened. Now, hopefully also, when the rapist is, found culpable and convicted and punished, maybe that could serve as a deterrent to potential rapists. So I believe that the cause of justice should be pursued. There are two big questions, however, in the pursuit of justice. Now, what should parents do when the rapist is a family member, for example? Do you hand him over to the police for prosecution and let him go to jail or not? That's a very, very difficult question. For example, if the rapist is a sibling, a cousin, an uncle to the victim, what should the family do? Well, I don't want to proffer an answer here. Think about it yourself and process it. But I think that, these are very, very difficult and challenging situations. Now, the second question is, what are the sentiments that could be generated if a rapist that is a family member is sent to jail to serve a life sentence? Because in Nigeria, the punishment for convicted rapists in Nigeria is life sentence. So if the rapist is the cousin or the brother or the uncle or the father of the girl, and then the matter is taken up and justice is pursued and the person is convicted and is sent to jail for life. Now imagine if a sibling raped his own sister. The sister is traumatized, needing attention and help, and then the brother is now convicted and sent to jail. The parents are nursing one wound here, and another wound has been created here. Now, you think about it and think about what is possible. I don't think I have a hard and fast answer for that one. All right. Now, so what I'm saying is that let's cater to the legal needs of the individual within the limits of reason and rationality. Okay, then there are other needs as well that the rape victim may have. Guidance as to the next steps to take, whether in collecting evidence for the prosecution, if you want to pursue the cause of justice, financial need for treatment, medical treatment, for psychotherapy, and then for prosecution or legal fees, and then support for post-trauma life. These are other needs. Now, if forensic evidence is needed, for example, money is needed to gather the evidence. Now, but there are some suggestions that I would like to give as I begin to round up for today, that if the rape victim reports the rape promptly, then physical evidence should be collected to be used to prosecute and hopefully convict the rapist. Evidence must be collected before she takes her bath, changes her clothes, brushes her hair, eats, drinks, or uses any cosmetic products such as perfume and powder. Typically, officers of the law and medical personnel are usually needed in gathering the evidence. Okay, now whether you're going to use the evidence or not, it's okay to gather it and have it in place. And then you can now think through it later, whether you want to push further or you want to call it off. It all depends on you and the factors that you are weighing together. Now, this is how far we can go today. I hope we can have another episode to discuss this matter because it's a very sensitive one that not too many people want to discuss, but I decided that this is something that we need to talk about. So I'll be coming your way, same platform, next week again, 8 p.m. Nigerian time on Exposé with Tony Akinyemi. Let me encourage you, if you have not yet done so, to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up, and also share this video with your friends and colleagues after you have watched it. And I do hope that the pieces of information and the enlightenment we have brought has been of immense value to you. Again, your comments mean a lot to us, so always keep them coming. Thank you for spending your beautiful Monday evening with me. The Lord bless you mightily. Have a wonderful week ahead. Bye.
Have you been through stuffs and you survived? Guess what? It's time to set your world on fire. You never know who needs your light, your warmth, and courage. You are a survivor, and that's amazing. I Am a Survivor is Tony Akinyemi's newest book. Hurry now, grab a copy from the TSS bookstore.